Oh, Mark, I'm Eden. My number is S034108. I'm at level is sophomore. Today I'll read Sophie's God While We Live. Hi, I'm going to talk to you today about laughter, and I just want to start by thinking about the first time I can ever remember noticing laughter. This is when I was a little girl. I wouldn't have been about 6, and I came across my parents doing something unusual, where they were laughing. They were laughing very, very hard. They were lying on the floor laughing. They were screaming with laughter. I did not know what they were laughing at, but I wanted. I wanted to be part of that, and I kind of stayed around at the edge going, woohoo, laughter, now. Incidentally, what they were laughing at was a song which people used to sing, which was based around signs in toilets on trains telling you what you could and could not do in toilets on trains. And the thing you have to remember about English is, of course, we do have an immensely sophisticated sense of humor. At the time, though, I didn't understand anything of that. I just cared about the laughter, and actually, as a neuroscientist, I've come to care about it again, and it is a really weird thing to do. What I'm going to do now is just play some examples of real human beings laughing, and I want you to think about the sound people make and how old they can be. And in fact, how primitive laughter is as a song. It is much more like an animal call than it is like speech. So here we have got some laughter for you. The first one is pretty joyful. Audio, laughing. Now, this next guy, I need him to breathe. There's a point in there where I'm just like, you have got to get some air in there, mate, because it just sounds like he's breathing out. Ah! This hasn't been edited. This is him. Ah! And finally we have, this is a human female laughing. And laughter can take us to some pretty old places in terms of making noises. Ah, she actually say, "Oh my God, what is that?" In French. We're all kind of with her. I have no idea. Now, to understand laughter, you have to look at a part of the body that psychologists and neuroscientists don't normally spend much time looking at, which is the rib cage. And it doesn't seem terribly exciting, but actually you are all using your rib cage all the time. What you are all doing at the moment with your rib cage, and don't start doing it, is breathing. So you use the intercostal muscles, the muscles between your ribs, to bring air in and out of your lungs just by expanding and contracting your rib cage. And if I was to put a strap around the outside of your chest called a breath belt, and just look at that moment. You see a rather gentle, sinusoidal movement. So that's breathing. You are all doing it. Don't stop. As soon as you start talking, you start using your breathing completely differently. So what I'm doing now is you see something much like this. In talking, you use very fine movements of the briefcase to squeeze the air out. And in fact, we are the only animals that can do this. It's why we can talk at all. Now, both talking and breathing has a mortal enemy, and that enemy is laughter. Because what happens when you laugh is low muscle starts to contract very regularly, and you get this very marked sort of zigzagging, and that's just squeezing the air out of you. It literally is that basic a way of making a sound. You could be stamping on somebody. It's having the same effect. You are just squeezing air out and each of those contrac- contractions gives you a sound. And then the contractions run together. You can get these spasms. And that's when you start getting it. Breathing. Things happening. I'm brilliant at least. Um, Now, in terms of the science of laughter, there isn't very much, but it does turn out that pretty much everything we think we know about laughter is wrong. So it's not at all unusual. For example, we hear people to say humans are the only animals that laugh. It's good, though, that humans are the only animals that laugh. In fact, you find laughter throughout the mammals. It's been well described and well observed in primates, but you also see it in rats, and whenever you find it, humans, primates, rats, you find it associated with things like ticking. That's the same for humans. You find it associated with play, and all mammals play, and wherever you found it, it's associated with interactions. So Robert Probine, who has done a lot of work on this, has pointed out that you are 13 times more likely to laugh if you are with somebody else than if you are on your own. And where you find most laughter is in social interactions like conversation. So if you ask human beings, when do you laugh? They'll talk about comedy and they'll talk about humor and they'll talk about jokes. If you look at when they laugh, they're laughing with their friends. And when we laugh with people, we're hardly ever actually laughing at jokes. You are laughing to show that you like them. Might even love them. You are doing all that at the same time as talking to them. And the latter is doing a lot of that emotional work for you. Something that Robert Provine has pointed out, as you can see here, and the reason why we were laughing when we hear those funny laughs at the start, and why I was laughing when I found my parents laughing, is that it's an and mostly behaviorally contagious effect. You can catch laughter from somebody else, and you are more likely to catch laughter of somebody else if you know that. So it's still modulated by this social context. You have to put humor to one side and think about the social meaning of laughter because that's where it originally origins lie. Now something I've got very interested in is different kind of laughter. And we have some neurobiological evidence about how human beings vocalize. This suggests there might be two kinds of laughs that we have. So it seems possible that the neurobiological helpless involuntary laughter, like my parents lying on the floor screaming about a silly song, might have a different basis to it than some of that more polite social laughter that you encounter, which isn't horrible laughter, but it's behavior somebody is doing as part of their communicative act to you, part of their interaction with you. They are choosing to do this. In our evolution, we have developed two different ways of vocalizing. Involuntary vocalization are part of an older system than the more voluntary vocalizations like the speech I'm doing now. So in my imagine that laughter might actually have two different roots. So I've been looking at this in more detail. To do this, have to make recordings of people laughing, and have had to do whatever it takes to make people laugh, and we got those same people to produce more posts. Social laughter. So imagine your friend told a joke and you are laughing because you like your friend, but not really because the jokes at all. So I'm going to play you a couple of those. I want you to tell me if you think this laughter is real laughter, and or if you think it's sport. So this involuntary laughter or more voluntary laughter? Audio. Ah! What does this sound like to you? Audience pause. Sophie Scott. Pause? Pause? How about this one? Yeah. I'm the best. Ah! Not really. No. That was helpless laughter. And in fact, to recall that, all they had to do was recall me watching one of my friends listening to something I knew she wanted to laugh at, and I just started doing this. What you do is that people are good at telling the difference between real and posed laughter. They seem to be different things to us. Interestingly, you see something quite similar with chimpanzees. Chimpanzees laugh differently if they are being tricked than if they are playing with each other, and we might be seeing something like that here. Involuntary laughter, tickling laughter, being different from social laughter. They are actually acoustically very different. The real laughs was longer, not higher in pitch. When you start laughing hard, you start squeezing air out of your lungs under much higher pressures than you could ever produce voluntarily. For example, I could never pitch my voice that high to sing. Also, you start to get these sort of contractions and weird whistling sounds, all of which means that real laughter is extremely easy, or feels extremely easy to spot. In contrast, posed laughter, we might think it sounds like a bit fake. Actually, it's not. It's actually an important social cue. We use it a lot. We're choosing to laugh in a lot of situations, and it seems to be its own thing. So, for example, you find no solidity in posed laughter. That kind of ha 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 sound that you never get. You could not do if you allow things involuntarily. So they do seem to be genuinely lead two different sorts of things. We took it into the scanner to see how brains respond when you hear laughter. And when you do this is really boring experience. You just play people real and post laughs. We didn't tell them it was a study on laughter. We put all the sound in there to distract them, and all they are doing is lying listening to sounds. We don't tell them to do anything. Not least, when you hear real laughter and when you hear forced laughter, the brains are responding completely differently, significantly differently. What you see in the regions in blue, which lies in auditory cortex, are the brain areas that respond more to the real laugh. And what seems to be the case when you hear somebody laughing involuntarily. You hear sounds you would never hear in many other contexts. It's very unambiguous, and it seems to be associated with great her auditory processing of these novel sounds. In contrast, when you're hearing somebody laughing in a posed way, what you see are these regions in pink, which are occupying brain areas associated with mentalizing. Think about what somebody else is thinking. And I think what that means is, even if you are having your brain scanned, which is completely boring and not very interesting, when you hear somebody going, ha 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 ha, you are trying to work out what why they are laughing. Laughter is always meaningful. You are always trying to understand it in context, even if, as far as you are concerned, at a point in time, it has not necessarily anything to do with you. You still want to know why those people are laughing. Now we've got at the opportunity. Look at how people hear real and post laughter across the age range. So this is an online experiment we ran with the Royal Society. And here we just ask people two questions. First of all, they heard some laughs, and they had to say, are real or posed to this laugh sound? The real laughs are shown in red and posed laughs are shown in blue. What you see is there is a rapid onset. As you get older, you get better and better at spotting real laughter. So 6-year-olds are at chance. They can really hear the difference. By the time you are older, you get better, but interestingly, you do not yet peak performance in that data set until you are in your late 30s and early 40s. You don't understand laughter fully by the time you hit puberty. You don't understand laughter fully by the time your brain has matured at the end of your teens. You are hearing about laughter throughout your entire early adult life. If we turn the question around and now say not, what does the laughter sound like in terms of being real or posed? But we say, how much does this laughter make you want to laugh? How contagious is this laughter to you? We see a different profile. And here, the younger you are, the more you want to join when you hear laughter. Remembering me laughing with my parents when I had no idea what was going on. You really can see this. Now somebody, young and old, find this real laugh more contagious than the post laugh. But as you get older, it all becomes less contagious to you. Now either we are all just becoming real grumpy as we get older, or it may mean that as you understand laughter better, and you are getting better at doing that, you need more than just hearing people laugh to want to laugh. You need the social stuff there. So we've got a very interesting behavior about which a lot of our latest assumptions are incorrect. I'm coming to see that actually there's even more to laughter than it's an important social emotion we should look at, because it turns out people are fundamentally unanswered in terms of how we use laughter. There's a really lovely set of studies coming out from Robert Levenson's lab in California, where he's doing a longitudinal study with couples. He gets married couples, men and women, into the lab, and he gives them stressful conversations to have while he wires them out to a polygraph so he can see them becoming stressed. So we have got the two of them in there, and he'll say to a husband, tell me something that Your wife really does that ir- irritate you, and what you see is immediately. Just run that one through your head briefly. You and your partner. You can imagine everyone body gets a bit more stressed as soon as they start. You can see physically, people become more stressed. What defines is that the curves who manage the feeling of stress with laughter. Positive emotions like laughter not only immediately become less stressed, they can see them physically feeling better. They are doing with this unpleasant situation better together. There are also the groups that report high level of satisfaction in their relationship and they stay together for longer. So in fact, when you look at close relationship, laughter is phenomenally useful index of how people are regulating their emotion together. We are not just emitting it at each other to show that we like each other. We are making ourselves feel better together. Now I don't think this is going to be limited to romantic relationships. I think this is probably going to be a characteristic of close emotional relationships such as you might have with friends, which explains my next clips, which is of a YouTube videos of some young man in a former East Germany on making a video to promote the heavy metal band, and it's extremely magical, and the mood is very serious. I want you to notice what happens in terms of laughter when things go wrong and how quickly that happens, and how that changes the mood. It's cold, it's about to get wet, it's got swimming trunks on, got a tower eyes. What might possibly happen? Video starts. Serious mood. And his friends are already laughing. They are already laughing. Hard. He's not laughing yet. Ah, he's starting to go now. And now they are all they are on the floor. The thing I really like about that is it's a bit all very serious until he jumps onto the ice. And as soon as he doesn't go through the ice. But also there isn't blood and fun everywhere. His friends start laughing, and imagine if Dan had played him out with him standing there going, "No, seriously, Heinrich, I think this is broken. We could enjoy watching that. That will be stressful. Or if he was running around with a visible broken leg laughing, and his friends are going, Heinrich, I think we need to go to the hospital now. That also wouldn't be funny. The fact that the laughter works, it gets him from a painful, embarrassing, difficult situation into a funny situation, in what we are actually enjoying there. And I think that's a really interesting use, and it's actually happening to all the time. For example, I can remember something like this happening at my father's funeral. We weren't jumping around on the ice in our underpants. We are not Canadians. These events are always difficult. I had a relative who was being a bit difficult. My mom was not in a good place, and I can remember finding myself just before the whole thing started telling this story about something that happened in a 1970s sitcom. I just load at a time. I don't know why I'm doing this, and how I realized I was doing was I was coming up with something from somewhere I could use to make her laugh together with me. It was a very basic reaction to find some reason we can do to this. We can laugh together. We are going to get through this. We are going to be okay. And in fact, all of us are doing this all the time. You do it so often, you don't even notice it. Everybody underestimates how often they laugh, and you are doing something. When you laugh with people, that's actually letting you access a really ancient evolutionary system that mammals have evolved to make and maintain social bonds. So clearly to regulate emotions, to make ourselves feel better. It's not something specific to humans. It's a really ancient behavior which really helps us regulate how we feel and make us feel better. In other words, when it comes to laughter, you and me, baby, and nothing but mammals. Ah, thank you. Thank you. And that my number is S0341008. My label is sophomore. And see you. Bye bye.